I'm still traumatized from the
You didn't even finish it.
First time that I saw it.
Oh, okay.
Here we go. Now we're looking at Superman 4.
The quest for more money.
Chris, do you like the fact that I dropped in the Canon chaps down the corner there?
Well, oh, that's funny.
How happy do they look?
It's their fault.
It's their fault. I like the fact that they must have been promoting King Solomon's Mines or something when they had that photograph taken. Menahem, Golan, and Yoram Globus.
I'm gonna try really hard. I'm not gonna make fun of this movie.
Answer this question: are you Nuclear Man or Nuclear Man?
Oh, Nuclear Man for sure. Nuclear Man. Now I'm gonna try really hard not to ridicule this movie because it's really low-hanging fruit.
That's what's annoying about this movie. There's moments in this movie where you know they had a script that worked, and then they do things and you kind of you're like, even if they had the budget, you're kind of like, what were you doing?
I know maybe it shouldn't have been made, but I mean, it's a miracle this thing got released. You know what I mean? And it's one of those movies that where had it not been released, we would have all been screaming out about how we wish it were made in any capacity. Like he fights an actual supervillain, an original one we haven't seen before. Holy cow! Why not? Why didn't they release it? I would have liked to have seen the dailies. This
was directed by Sidney J. Furie, who can direct good movies. He's a decent director. He made a classic movie called The Ipcris File, and he made a not so classic but a classic B movie, nevertheless, called Iron Eagle, which is kind of like Top Gun but more fun. It wasn't a case that we had a director here that didn't know what he was doing. He knew how to put together a good movie. But this was a passion project for Christopher Reeve.
Oh yeah, he pretty much championed to get it done. I mean, he he had a lot of stuff. He jumped through a lot of hoops to get this thing done.
In order to get this made, part of the deal, because it was Golden Globus that were making it for Canon Movies, not known for quality big budget cinema. And one of the reasons that he got on board with him was they funded the making of, I think it was Street Smart. It was a movie that he'd been trying to get made for years, and so they funded that movie getting made. But he had control over this as far as like what the story was going to be, and again bringing verisimilitude, or so he thought, back to the Superman brand. And he wanted to do this kind of like anti-nuclear weapon, anti-war type story.
So here's my question for you: if you ignore the other three being made, right? Cut them out of your do a world spinny thing so that they're gone.
Yeah, hang on a minute. Hang on.
This is the only.
I'll just take a drink.
Oh, just throw the glass, keep the bottle. Now,
okay, right, here we go.
Okay, so this is the only Superman movie that got made, right?
Yes.
Maybe it was done by Albert Pian. I don't know.
I wish it was done by Albert Pian.
Do you think that would change your outlook into it wasn't great, but at least we got a Superman movie? Kind of like Captain America.
Okay, no. However, if they hadn't had their budget slashed, if they hadn't had about an hour or so cut out of the movie, they may have been able to put something together that if it was the first one you'd seen, it could have worked that way. But as it stands and what they filmed, no. Not at all.
Because I looked at this thing on a completely technical level. There was no like watching it for enjoyment because I mean, it's a slog to get through. But
tell you what, the first 10 minutes or so, you're kind of into it.
Even you can tell when the money ran out.
Yeah, 10 minutes in. I think it was. I think it might have been like I don't know, was it 10 minutes and 38 seconds? I think that's what I counted up to, and then they ran out of money. The rest of the movie was like paper mache.
I feel like that scene, or that if you look at like the Superman 2 poster where he's flying toward the camera, like some of those scenes almost look like they just took that as a cardboard cutout and like swung it through, like and like rocked it back and forth a little bit to make it look like he was moving.
Yeah. It's so hard to do because you know that I love trashy movies.
So this must break your heart.
This one did. It kind of did, because when I saw it in the cinema, it did kind of break my heart. I was like, I couldn't believe what they'd done. And this is a pre-internet as well, so you didn't really know what going in, what was going to hit you. And it was kind of like being hit by a brick wrapped up in a brick.
Okay, so here's what I'm going to attempt to do. I'm going to try to find some little bit of diamond in this coal dust.
Okay, any of those images there help you?
So here's the thing that I liked. I liked they tried to do something different, right? Like they tried to create a new villain that wasn't Kryptonian, had some superpowers. However, it didn't really make sense given that, you know, he's all sun based, he's all solar based, and they throw a solar bad guy at him. That should make him stronger. But I do like the fact that they gave it a shot. I've been wishing that they would do something like this. As a matter of fact, this movie goes into my bucket with the Howling sequels as something that could get remade and not be a bad movie. I think. You got to cut out stuff like the Build-O-Vision that he had. And stuff like that. But I mean, like taking an original character, original bad guy that's got some sort of like a power, like Metallo would be a good one. But I mean, you know, if we're just going with a new character, not in the comics, I wish they would have given him just like actual claws versus those big stick-on fingernails.
No, hang on.
But I give him points for really trying to do something that had nothing to do with Krypton. Even Gene Wilder, I mean, not Gene Wilder, of course, Gene Hackman, absolutely didn't care, but he did a good job.
Gene Wilder played Nuclear Man.
Yeah, that'd be great. But I mean, you know, obviously it was a contract obligation. Obviously he didn't care, but he's still Gene Hackman. He still did a good job.
Yeah. Yeah, but I think they just kind of farmed it out to a cheaper effects house. So everything that was built upon it up into the third movie was just thrown out the window. So they didn't use the kind of like the front projection that they used for flying shots kind of thing. In fact, there's an image that's just behind those two happy cannon chappies. There's an image of Superman flying forward. I don't, post-production, I don't know if you know this, but I would be interested to know how many times that shot's used in the movie.
It's at least 4. They'd use reverse shots, him flying out into the atmosphere. Then they'd reverse that, flip that, and have him fly on the other side of the world. And they really stretched the dollars beyond what they actually had, which I got to give them props for that. I know it's, like I said, it's low-hanging fruit to just shoot. I mean, I'm sad that they weren't even able to get rid of the wires on the moon fight because they're there in all their glory.
So it's 5 times you use that shot.
I do think there's a good story in here, and I do think it had potential, but you know,
there's about 7 good stories in here.
So I mean, like, this is into the it would be good as a remake. I know a lot of people say, "Oh no, I hate remakes and stuff like that," but there are legitimately some things that either didn't have the budget or they didn't have the marketing and support and all that stuff that could very well work with a remake, and this is definitely one of them.
When it first starts, there's some good stuff. There's some kind of well-written dialogue, good character stuff. Even with the introduction of Lex Luthor, although it's very camp, with kind of like what's his name, John Cryer is his nephew. That is still is still on, you know, it's on point for the character.
Oh yeah, still very Silver Agey.
It's the whole sequence with it. Essentially, they say we do the whole sequence where he takes Lois flying, and they do that whole scene again, but they do it for about $15.
I like how he just chucked her and said bye.
and then he doesn't. Then we do the magic kiss, so it never happened again. It's almost like
see, that's when he screws up. He either rewinds the world or magic kisses his way out of it. I'm not cool with that.
It's a bit of a dick. I know. It's almost like we have to do a best of as well. We have to throw these things in because, again, I'm talking about the Bond movies. It's like we need to have a car chase here. We need to have this.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, Margot Kidder doesn't seem to be at her best in here. Her acting is
hardly used even, and then maybe
kind of off as well. Yeah. But I haven't seen all the deleted footage and stuff, so I believe there's tons
got
of stuff.
The Bizarro stuff in there.
Well, the Bizarro stuff. Okay, that's interesting. We'll talk about the Bizarro stuff. Sorry, these guys with the guns are creeping me out. I'm going to come out there for a second. Of course, it was filmed in Milton Keynes in England.
Right.
And the idea was that they were going to use matte paintings and stuff to put in the skyscrapers, but they never did. So it just looks like a shopping centre in England.
It's a student film at this point.
There's things in this movie that, I'll be honest with you, this is as far as I got, and I had to turn it off. I was trying to watch it again today, and there's a scene where they've just been flying around with the Statue of Liberty and doing all kinds of hijinks.
Oh, I laughed out loud during that scene.
Yeah, and then
rolled up and scratched him on the neck.
He rolls up, scratched him on the neck, and then he kicks him like a football kick, and he goes flying through the sky. away from the Statue of Liberty, and then they have a shot of his cape falling down onto the torch of the Statue of Liberty.
Oh, no, he scratched him, and then he went, ow, ow, and then he set it back down. And
no,
then
but he kicks him out far away.
Yeah.
After he set it down, he scratches him, and then he kicks him into the sky, and somehow his cape manages to come all the way back and just gently fall onto the Statue of Liberty.
It would have made it more complete if they would have used a Wilhelm scream and or a Goofy. Yahoo!
What people don't seem to realise these days, movies didn't generally do better with every sequel. It was always a case of diminishing returns. So the budget did get lower and the movie didn't make as much money. And look how happy Golan and Globus are down there.
Yeah, it was before the bankruptcy.
Yeah, before the bankruptcy. There was lots of things happened in this movie. One of the stuntmen broke 2 arms, both his own.
I was going to say 2 of them?
2 of them.
Goodness.
And sued them for about $1 million or something. And anything that happened like that, the money would come out the budget. There's a thing that as well that they do in this movie that could have really worked, and that's this whole idea of the Daily Planet being taken over by a tabloid kind of owner.
Wow, so talk about predicting the future.
Yeah, and you look at it, you go, oh, that they were really onto something, and that's why they were doing all this. But again, there's just too much of everything happening for them to even focus on that.
Hey, Soul Lion, you're right in the middle. We're right in the middle of Superman 4. So
Hey, Soul Lion, yeah, we're right in the middle of it right now. I've finished my drink. That's the only way I can manage it.
It's on his second bottle.
There just is. I've forgotten how much happens to this. It goes from one plot to the next plot. It's almost like episodic
quantity
TV.
Over quality.
The A plot and the B plot. So you see it in an episode of LA Law or an episode of Star Trek Next Generation with the A story and the B story. Sometimes they can come together at the end. Sometimes it's just separate. This has got like the A, B, C, D stories all running, and the main one, the one that they really pushed it on, was Superman gets together all the nuclear weapons. Is it nuclear or nuclear? Because Gene Hackman, I don't know, he doesn't know. Right. He gets all these weapons together and he throws them out in space. The sun, isn't it?
So I thought you'd be happy that they were able to get a whole season's worth of TV into one movie.
Oh, no. The whole problem with the movie is that plot line, because it links Superman to real world problems in a way that if you do that, then your suspension of disbelief goes out the window, because you start thinking, how would countries actually react if Superman did that?
But then at the end, he said, hey, it's not for me to decide.
Yeah, I know, but yeah. That's only because he's fought Mark Pillow.
It was very silly, and it was very signally, and it was very, like, beat you over the head with the message, and that's very Hollywood.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that right there was they're trying to make Superman too noble and strayed from the formula of, hey, I catch people falling out of buildings.
Yeah.
And, though, I think partially that right now Superman is very much, I mean, they won't say truth, justice in the American way. He's very much a world icon now, kind of where you saw that example in Superman Returns when he kind of went up into the world and he listened to all the screams and went and picked out the ones he thought was most urgent, which is silly when you think about it. But they're, saying, oh, he's for the world. And I think this is almost the genesis of that. Like, making it, he's saving the entire world, not just Metropolis, not just the US. He's for the world kind of thing. And I'm a big fan of keeping the character in their city, because it's a fictional city, for goodness sake. Keep them in their city. There's lots to do.
The Superman doing aerobics.
It feels like a callback to Superman 2. And then he does the bully thing and throws a huge heavy weight on the guy for being pretentious.
Before I ask the question about standing up, I'm going to ask this. Well, it's a question I think you actually asked me before.
Which one? Do you
prefer a while ago,
Man of Steel?
Yeah, you asked me if I prefer this as a Superman movie.
You're not so sure now anymore, are you?
Well, do I prefer this as a Superman movie or Man of Steel? And without thinking about it, I said, well, yeah, I prefer Superman 4 over Man of Steel as a Superman movie. And I have to say, even though I can't make it past half an hour, I still prefer this as a Superman movie to Man of Steel.
You haven't tried to rewatch Man of Steel. You might only make 15 minutes of that.
I might make 15 minutes of it, exactly. Because there's a cynicism at the centre of Man of Steel which isn't at the centre of this movie.
Right.
Cynicism runs all the way through this movie, but that's coming from canon, you know.
I really liked how when he was beaten down on the moon, he got up and took a minute to adjust the flag.
Yeah.
And then he flew out.
Which he would do, you know. Right. Whereas Snyder's would rip the flag off and try and thrust it into the nuclear man's eyeball.
Yeah. Choke it down his throat.
Exactly. So they're just different movies for different times.
I did kind of like the idea of the fact that if he didn't have any sun whatsoever, he was dead in the water. That was an interesting kind of weakness. Yeah. And then he tried to fix it. I'll just keep him on the dark side of the moon, you know, as a prison. Oh, no. The sun rose.
They tried.
They really tried.
That's interesting because I had noticed that I've never actually read the Superman 4 movie comic.
No, I haven't either. They brought him back. I don't know where the story was. I want to say it's like a newer kind of a newer situation, you know, like from one of the newer comics, but they brought him into the books for just a second.
Oh, right. I shall share this in a second, guys.
It's kind of like what could have been. He's got the claws, like I was saying. It looks like Ivan Reis art. Yeah. But, I mean, see, that doesn't look so bad. I got to take the Superman cape away.
I kind of prefer Mark Pillow, though, to be honest. If the movie was okay, there would be nothing wrong with it.
But this looks like a proper comic book villain.
It does. It looks like a proper comic book villain.
So, I mean, I give him points for that. I do.
Yeah. There was an entire sequence where, because we're not going to leave this movie, we're back to it again. There was an entire sequence where Gene Hackman gets a strand of Superman's hair and he uses the DNA this is, you know, Jurassic Park, eat your heart out, to create his own kind of like supervillain.
Yep.
And the first attempt doesn't really produce what he's after. So it's kind of like their version of a bizarro Superman.
Yep. It looks like he comes from Red Dwarf.
I held out hope for these sequences because the character of essentially the idiotic nuclear man, as opposed to the clever one, is played by Clive Mantle. Right. So Clive Mantle was Little John in Robin of Sherwood, which is like one of my favourite kind of versions of the telling of Robin Hood. And so I was like, he must surely play a more scary, you know, physically imposing supervillain. And no, not at all. It's so depressing to watch.
This is absolutely one of those things like when we talked about way back in the day with the Curse of the Werewolf, where they had some of that footage, you know, of him like growling and screaming and holding what would be his mom in the movie. And you look at that as a stock photo and you're like, wow, that looks amazing. Little do you know that there's nothing like that in the movie.
Yeah. That's the character. That's the first version of Nuclear Man that they cut out of the movie.
Go to this.
Before he gets it right. That's him going to get it right. Whoops, I don't know what's going on there. Quick, before we get taken off of YouTube.
Oh. But yeah, I'm glad they cut that out. I'll be honest.
There's two questions. One, does it still stand up? Two, did it ever stand up?
It doesn't stand up. And I think the only way it would stand up is, like I said, if you catch like a kid at like 4 or 5 years old, you know, the kind that will watch old Thundercat shows, or they'll watch the new like Bean Mouth Flash animation style cartoons and get the same amount of enjoyment out of them. I think this would still work out for little kids, because you're still seeing, you know, like people beating each other up and stuff like that. But anybody that gets any understanding of any kind of story, I think is going to see too many things wrong. And there's just so much more out there that like looks great.
I think if you're like 10 years old and you saw it on VHS or you saw it on TV or that, there's tons of stuff that you're going to have fun with. And
it's a lot like those Godzilla movies, the ones that went like really, really kiddie.
Pretty much. I think all the kind of goofy stuff that makes us go, what are they doing to a 10-year-old is just going to be like, wow.
And I think this falls into that category very much. It's a kid's movie at the end of the day.
So yeah, it doesn't stand up, and no, it didn't stand up unless you were a child who saw it, and it'll have some kind of connection with you.
Yep.
And you know what? That's a cool thing. So that's all good as far as I'm concerned.